given that the conservatives are not okay, it is nevertheless the case that you can't like just kind of um, close your eyes and like will the conservatives who really exist to stop existing and be replaced by some like nice, much more respectable William F. Buckley kind of conservatives who used to exist. I mean, this is just kind of what we've got, and this is a large chunk of the country, and then so there's a question about what you do with regards to stuff like invitations to come do debates. With these people. And I will say that, I mean, look, I always get a little bit of this. Like, I think even with the Charlie Kirk one, like, I don't even remember the name of the magazine, but there was like, not current affairs, not Jacobin, but there was some lefty magazine editor, who was upset that I like, platform Charlie Kirk. That's obviously silly, but like, there wasn't that much of it, but like this, there was like a lot, right? There was a fair amount of people being like, no, you shouldn't do this, and because you shouldn't take this invitation because these are horrible, crazy people, and I will say, I mean, like, if there's one where I hesitated a minute, right? I mean, like, that's probably it, because like I mean, there really were like, I mean, if you're gonna rank how horrible these people are, like, which I don't really know what ranking system you'd use to try to figure that out, but if you were, I'm sure a lot of people who were at this event would score pretty high. I mean, James Lindsay, sadly not on my panel. I would have loved that actually, but James Lindsay was at the event. And I, I think I've been pretty clear on many occasions that I regard him as a hilarious but also very dangerous lunatic. And he and Rufo have actually been succeeding in promoting these like censorship bills in state legislatures around the country and are very, very bad news. But I have to say, I'm really happy that I did do it. That as much as like some of the stuff that we've shown just to kind of establish how crazy some of these people are is and I mean, my God, like, I mean, Sean, the guy who said the thing that I was objecting to, is like probably the least crazy of the right wingers on that panel, right? But um, certainly the smartest one. But in any case, like, I think that it's still really good to go. And I think that like as I was like kind of thinking about whether to go, like I kind of had to, I mean, it was one of those things where like kind of stop and think, okay, what are the general reasons I think this is good to do? And do those apply here or not? Right? Is there some, if they don't apply, is there some special reason they don't apply? And the way I really look at this, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, 'cause, like I'm an old man. I'm on Facebook, right? So I had like a Facebook memory that was from this debate I did with Stefan Molyneux, 2 years ago, and I saw somebody on there be like, "Oh my God, why would you debate Stefan Molyneux?" And I get it, right? But then I was thinking about it. I was like, well, look, I mean, the purpose of a debate is never to try to convince the other person on the other podium, or the person on the other side of the YouTube split screen, as the case may be. It's always to convince whoever's persuadable in the audience. So meaning like even somebody like Molyneux is as batshit as he is, like it's still he has, or back then had. I mean, now he's been kicked off of YouTube, so who knows? But back then had a audience that was big enough that was statistically impossible. It didn't include plenty of people who were just kind of Molyneux curious, but not really married to his perspective. Lots of people who maybe were somewhat true believers, but like this is the time that you happen to catch them where they're at just the right moment in their personal journeys that like they're open to doubts and counter arguments. You have idly curious sitters, like all those people are going to be present there, and it does seem to me still like it's a good thing to try to reach those people and try to immunize them against what the Molyneux of the world are selling, if at all possible. That still seems like a good thing to me to do. And I am actually pretty happy with how this went. And so there was today, there is this actually just kind of happened randomly. It was somebody who I did not know. But I guess his video editor, and he got in touch with me on Twitter, and he told me that he'd cut together this little 98-second montage of some of the argument that we were having at the debate about the schools and what I would regard as Republicans' attempt to gin up hysteria about stuff having to do with schools, and the kind of larger context there about culture war and economic inequality and all of that. And he did a great job. Actually, I don't think he is in the description right now, but I promise I will edit the description later to include his Twitter handle so we can give this guy due credit, who put it together. But I do think it sums up nicely, like, why, like, it was really good to see, and I think, like, you know, I think it does at least sum up the kind of perspective that I'm kind of hoping to give people by doing this stuff. So do we have that clip?
I mean, I think unfortunately, because the Biden administration and the Democratic leadership has been so tepid and uninspiring, I think that it's entirely possible that you will get an election based on contrived culture war nonsense.
Culture war nonsense?
Oh,
you
yes.
want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, yes.
Are you saying that people aren't talking to kids in kindergarten through third grade and asking them, or talking to them about what gender is and what their sexuality should be, and talking about masturbation? Are you saying that that's not happening?
Well,
evidence.
Talking about masturbation would actually not be affected in any way by.
But that did happen recently, correct?
By the DeSantis bill. There's nothing in that language that's about talking about sexually explicit content or not talking about it. What is in there is about talking about sexual orientation or gender identity, which is a very different set of topics.
Do you think
in
that
Florida, it explicitly says, it's in statutes, that sex ed has to promote abstinence outside of marriage, and it has to promote the benefits of monogamous heterosexual marriage. That's already in state law, so I think the idea is an attempt to whip up a moral panic so that people will think about that instead of thinking about out-of-control levels of economic inequality, instead of thinking about a healthcare system that most people hate for very good reasons, instead of thinking about labor unions that most Americans are supportive of and the Republicans are absolutely not, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I mean when I say control.
That was a good clip, but I do have to say that my union, which is me and Andy, we're gonna grieve. That is my work, the editing work. So we're gonna put in a big grievance about that. But
also the font choice.
I like the font. All right.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I think I think that this is I tend to think a lot of this is a perspective that that people who might be curious about debates like this, or might be curious about events this, who might in the case of these particularly better discourse people, I don't know a lot about them, but I think that it comes out of sort of early 2010s kind of new atheism. That's kind of the origin story, and this is kind of the anti-woke wing of what happened in that line of development. But people who maybe they're interested because of the atheism stuff, maybe maybe they've got some culture war grievances and irritations because God knows, maybe they've encountered some liberals who are incredibly annoyed. This would not be outside of the realm of possibility, right? That could have happened. But so one way or another, you kind of get down this path of being around these people and listening to these perspectives. And I think that this other kind of perspective that's no, guys, this is just nonsense, right? Not because not because I actually think, I don't even know what the sort of opposition that they have in their heads is, but not because I actually think it's really important that every single kindergartner be given a coloring book with all 34 genders in it or whatever, right? Not because of that, right? But just because it's it's just kind of bullshit. You start looking at the details, it's a panic based on nothing. And really, take a long step back. Why do they want you to be worked up about this? Why is it that they're why is it that they're like they have like quite this much of a whatever for going after this issue? Why is it that they don't want to talk about the kinds of things, by the way, that most voters tell most pollsters, right? Like that they care the most about, just like jobs and healthcare and and all that stuff, right? I mean, like that's a consistent result for like forever, right? That people will say that those are the issues that they care most about, right? So why don't Republicans want to talk about that stuff? Well, I think there's a pretty compelling reason.
You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive post-games on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.